energy costs are 4 times ours. Electricity costs are 4 times ours in the UK versus the US. And I want the UK economy to be as strong as it possibly can be. And so the UK can be the best ally to the US that it possibly can be. And having a growing economy is essential to that, and the electricity costs make it very, very difficult. So I hope that the UK will continue to examine the policies in the North Sea, and frankly make some changes to it that allows for more drilling and more production, because you're using oil and gas. It's just you're importing it. Why not use your own?
You've spoken directly to the Prime Minister in the meetings you've had with him about it, including when President Trump has been in the room as well. Yeah. What were those meetings like? Was the Prime Minister listening to the message?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are certainly members of the government that are listening to that. And there is a little bit of movement to make some changes to the policy, and I hope that'll continue.
So, if the Prime Minister is starting to get the message, is Ed Miliband wrong, do you think?
Wrong in what sense?
In sticking to his belief that the UK should be prioritising net zero by 2030 and not generating new oil and gas drilling licenses.
It's going to take all energy for all countries to compete in the 21st century for AI and data centers. And so I don't think Ed Miliband is necessarily wrong, but I think it's an incorrect policy to ignore your fossil fuel reserves, both in the North Sea and onshore.
And if there were changes, and there's lots of policies we could point to, one of them that's been talked about in the last week is the energy price levy, the extra tax. Mm-hmm. If those went away, what scale of difference do you think that would make to American energy companies, to American capital? Would there be a flood of it into the UK, or would it be a marginal change?
No, it'd be quite substantial. But it's not just U.S. companies. It's a lot of UK companies are here, and they're literally just had a meeting with a lot of them around table, and they're worried about their supply chain. They're worried about their workforce, because right now they don't have enough work for their workers. So not only are the current policies leaving a lot of oil and gas in the North Sea, they're gonna have a huge impact on employment, not only in the direct exploration companies or the oil field service companies, but then in their suppliers, where they're supplying, say, oil field service companies is 10-20% of their business, but that's going to come down substantially.
I wanted to touch a couple of other topics, Ambassador, if we could, and start with China. As you've seen in the last couple of weeks in the UK, there's been a real debate as to whether or not China qualifies as an enemy. Amazing comments in the last days from President Xi and President Trump on the relationship. Are we now, in fact, looking potentially going forward at calling China a partner?
I would hope so. I would hope that would. I hope that would be terrific. But China has definite designs on things. They have ideas. They're patient. They're clever. They have a great economy. So they would like to see the U.S. and the West, I think, weakened. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly things we want to be able to do with China, and I know the UK wants to do things with China. The United States does too, and we should. But I think we always need to keep in the back of our mind that China does not have our interest at heart. They have theirs. Mm-hmm. Fair enough, but I think. While the U.S. has its interest at heart, and I have the U.S. interest at heart. We're not unmindful of the United Kingdom or our European allies or our other allies around the world. China isn't burdened with any of that.
On Ukraine, I wonder, as you've spent more time here in Europe, whether it's changed your view, whether you fed that view back to President Trump to take a tougher stance on President Putin.
Not my personal views. No, I've always been for taking a tough stance with Russia. And, the president has been, I would say, careful in ramping up pressure on Russia. And but I think his patience is wearing out. And so I'm delighted to see additional sanctions on the Russian oil companies. And one of the problems is a lot of European countries still depend on Russian gas. Mm-hmm. We're mindful of that. We understand that. But until we can really cut off their ability to sell oil and gas around the world, they're going to have money. And Putin seems intent on continuing the war.
Obviously, you've been here now for a number of months. Does the UK have free speech?
Well, of course it does. I mean, it's one of the bedrocks of your country and of ours too. There are some things that we see that we point out to our colleagues that, maybe you need to rethink how you're doing this or how you're viewing some of the things that we see. But,
do you mean like the online safety bill, or?
Well, the online safety bill is part of it, but I think there are other things. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the comedian who got who got arrested at Heathrow, and you just have to scratch your head about that. Mm-hmm. And I think the Prime Minister said, "Yeah, we shouldn't have done that." Those are the kind of things that you see, and frankly, some of those things could happen in the U.S. too, where people get, so we call it being canceled, for saying something, but they're not going to get arrested.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Trump-Starmer relationship directly. Clearly, some more trade deals the president's announced in Asia over the last week. The tariff rates tend to be 30%. The UK rate still stands out as the best. Would that deal have happened if not for Prime Minister Starmer personally and his relationship with President Trump?
They have a great relationship, and obviously no one knows if that would have happened without the Prime Minister. But I know, again, back to the special relationship, the President really loves this country, and I don't think it's coincidental that the tariff rates on the UK are generally a third or at worst half of what a lot of other countries are facing. I think the Prime Minister and his team did a great job of positioning the United Kingdom to be the first trade deal, but also the best one that's been struck.
Do you think they could go up? Could we be punished as a nation if we did something that displeased President Trump?
Boy, obviously I really don't know, but it would have to be something pretty severe, I think. That's not the way the president views things.